that is supposed to separate church and state. I don't understand why it's such a big deal, but I also see, or could see, how the Republicans want to strike back at her.
Yeah, no, ridiculous. I can withhold commentary, Adrienne, if you want to do one more story, or I can keep going.
Oh, no, this is our last story.
No, look, I think that it's so silly to me that they got offended, right? I was just trying to figure out, like, okay, what exactly is she doing? Because it seems like she was just moving stuff around, right? Like she was just sort of like playing find the Bible. And no one was looking for their Bible because they claim to support, the teachings of Jesus, but they don't actually read the teachings of Jesus. I mean, maybe they're more Old Testament people. So I think it's, again, Adrienne, we live in a moment where Republicans are so triggered. Yes, triggered, the word that they think the left is. They're so triggered by the messenger and not the message. They're triggered by the fact that there were Bibles in different places versus what is actually happening, which is, yes, the coalescing of religion and government to the point where we can't distinguish a difference anymore. And truly religious laws. I mean, I know we shouldn't be saying things like Ya Al-Qaeda, or like, but it is for a party that loves to demonize Islam and talk about, Sharia law all the time. Look at how religiously guided the laws that they are pushing, or supposedly religiously guided the laws they're pushing, are.
Absolutely. Again, y'all need to look it up. It's called Christian fascism. And that's exactly what they are doing by elevating these tenets that are spiritual Christian tenets, and also using that to weaponize and advance law. That is completely and totally disgusting, and it's not okay, especially when you have so many Americans out here criticizing other countries for being a religious-based country, when we very much are. My God, you look at our dollar bill and it's "In God We Trust" written across it. It's absolutely junk, but I know what's not junk is Francesca Fiorentini. You want to quickly tell everybody where they can find more of you?
Yeah, everybody follow me at Franny Fio on all the things, and you can find me at the Bituation Room podcast on the TYT network. You can also find it on YouTube and Twitch/Franny Fio every Tuesday and Friday, 1 p.m. Pacific, 4 p.m. Eastern.
Fantastic. You can catch me on Rebel HQ, and it has been great being your host this week. Thanks so much for your time. Love you long. See you later.
Welcome, friends. Welcome, family. What's going on, Ma? Welcome to the watch list, you guys. It's a Wednesday edition on the show. How you guys doing? Hope you've enjoyed your day so far. As we flow straight through, we've got lots happening today. So since you guys are here with me, again, my punctual people, please like, subscribe. Also, go ahead and share that damn stream, because coming up after this, we're dropping some of these videos also on the watch list page over on YouTube and Facebook. You guys can check them out as well. Go ahead, let it be known. Even your folks, since we've moved time slots that can no longer catch us in the morning, they might as well know. To sweeten the deal, I mean, you're giving me all this. How about I give you this? Adrienne Lawrence joins me on the program today. She's the host of Overruled on Rebel HQ, and apparently the host of Everything, you guys.
Apparently.
What's going on, Adrienne? How you feeling?
I'm feeling like pretty good. The comeuppance extravaganza that the last 48 hours has been is just, it's really fueled my joy.
I was on TDR this morning talking with John about it, and he said it was one of the best news days overall that he's seen in a very long time. And I wasn't, maybe I'm just stuck in the pessimism pool, but I was like, about what, bro? What one thing? Santos, okay, fine, he's gonna get some kind of punishment. But the come up it's coming for one Donald Trump as well is, I guess, a bit of a thing, which actually is a part of what we're even going to start with, because the defenses have to begin, the coming out to the public has to begin, so they can shield him from a bit of that responsibility, even if nothing else, for people to realize that a jury did determine that he is liable for that sexual assault, not for the rape part, just the sexual assault part. So let's go ahead and jump straight into this first one. One of his many attorneys that probably will be quitting by next week, she went on TV and they were all talking about this.
My final question to you is, I mentioned that there are 15 women altogether who have alleged that Trump sexually harassed or assaulted them. Are you concerned that more
Are we talking
of
about
this,
2016? Hold on.
Are you concerned
I have
that
not gotten
all
a
told,
complaint from 15 women.
All told, that not that you've gotten complaints that have become public. Are you concerned that this
Since
case
20,
that
are you
we've seen
talking
today,
about 2016? Is that
are
the
you
desperation
concerned-
that we're at right now?
Are you concerned that the case that we saw today, that it is maybe just the beginning, that other criminal action could be in the future?
No, I think you're concerned that he's going to win, which is why you're bringing up 2016 things, because you have nothing to bring up. That's what I think you're concerned. And you should be concerned. He's leading in the polls.
Okay.
Well, apparently that's all that Lena Abba cares about, one of Trump's attorneys. Now that that jury has found him liable for that sexual assault with E. Jean Carroll, it's not looking too good. And I think it's a pretty straightforward question. How about these other women that have alleged similar things from one former president? Alina wasn't very jazzed about answering that question, so much so she continued interrupting and trying to disrupt this interview. I have a little bit of advice for Alina. Say, we're not interested in coming on. Instead, she looked like this. Watch more.
Okay. I'm a journalist. I am not concerned about anything. I'm asking you, as one of his attorneys, about things that are out there. And in addition to what you
Since
are here to talk.
2016, is that what we're talking about?
Great.
I'm talking about things that give me a year. These 15 women. Are we talking about 2016 when he was running and almost won and then did win?
It is not relevant what you're talking about.
It is
about
relevant.
No,
you
it's
just
not.
asked me about 15 women. I don't have 15 women that have come forth with a claim.
Okay.
Where are they? I don't have them.
I didn't say that they came. I didn't say that they came forward with a claim. I said that they have made public statements. I said they have made public statements, and my question was, are you concerned
and you
about
have
this?
nothing for 2024.
Thank you. Thank you for your time. I very much appreciate it. And I hope to talk soon because there's a lot more to discuss as you go on with your appeal.
I'm sure there will when he wins.
And
Thank you.
Not sure if she realizes this, but this approach, this attitude, this anger doesn't really make him look all that good, or honestly her either. So the question kept going up. Is this 2016, 2016? Is it 2016, 2016, 2016? But we do know that they'll bring up, I mean, at a moment's notice, Bill Clinton, who back in the 90s had that scandal going on. But it wasn't even like this to the degree of this type of thing. But it's all about 2020 and 2024, and make sure we talk only about that because that doesn't affect anyone else at all. So again, since we're talking about years past, even the statute of limitations question that was then also asked of Alina since she's bringing up years and how far things are back, let's see if she has any explanations for that aspect. Let's watch.
Is this the kind of law that you think should be changed, separate from this case, for women to have more time to process things that happen to them, assaults?
No, because it's indefensible. There are things called justice, and people have the right to go to courts and go to prisons and go to police officers and say, I was raped, I was assaulted. That is your right, and you should take that right if you were assaulted, if you were raped. But what you are not allowed to do is say, I don't have a year, I don't have a date, I'm not sure if it happened, I'm not sure when it happened. And guess what? I was in Bergdorf Goodman, but he lived across the street and nobody saw it. She didn't like him as a candidate. And now she's gonna say it again when in 2024 he's the leading candidate. You're not allowed to do that. That is un-American. So no, this isn't about rape victims, this is about politics. And you know what? Shame on anybody. Because the rape victims, it's a sad thing.
The anger is just flowing, and she kind of can't find a way to answer the question, Adrienne. So, she's an attorney. She's upset about the results of this, and they're talking about the appeals that they're gonna go with. But then as we try to toss in how we care about women, but then we actually don't, and then if someone comes with an accusation, it's just purely political, and he's up in the polls, it kind of seems like she's peeling away at this fake cover of how much they actually care about women and their rights and how they were assaulted. I guess specifically only when it comes for her president.
You know what? I just really feel like that Dana Bash deserves an award for that interview because it was unhinged the whole entire time, from the attorney starting with the head cock to her being so unrationally combative. It almost made me wonder if she was trying to cause a scene and a chaos so people would talk more about that interview as opposed to the Trump verdict. And the thing is that no, we are not going to allow you and your little highlights in your hair distract us from the fact that the former president has been convicted of sexual abuse. The fact is we have a conviction against him, or excuse me, you have a finding liability, a verdict against him that tells you that the people know who he is. And the fact is that the GOP doesn't want to acknowledge fully who this man is, at least publicly, but we know, we the people know. And New Yorkers know, and people around the country know. So whether the GOP continues to move forward with him as a front runner of their party, it really seems to be an exercise in a lack of intelligence, much like his attorney did during that interview.
Well, that is the plan, but then also since she keeps going with the political route and saying these women are coming forward and who's accusing this and they're doing that, there's plenty of women, as we've heard many times and we've talked about, many women across the country who allege assault like this, and then they go and talk to the police. As she said, everyone has the right to talk to police and see police and report all these crimes and things that has happened to them. What happens though, Alina, after this happens? How about we look into one of these specific issues of going to the authorities and what those authorities did. Down in Florida, this is new news. Florida detective has been arrested because he was accused of falsifying sex crimes cases. He was doing this for 21 years. He's a detective and he's with South Florida Sheriff's Agency. And he was accused of falsifying this information and closing out sex crimes cases without a thorough investigation. So as he's done this over and over again, and when people go to authorities to report some of these things, the authorities have to give a damn. They have to take in the information. They have to maybe assess these rape kits many times, which are untested, unfounded, thrown in the garbage, tossed to the side because our authorities tend to not care. Now, then it leads to then people going, well, look at these false accusations people keep coming up with. Women are just throwing this around just because it's political. You keep talking about how things are political because you're in the political realm. What's actually happening is I looked it up even further, Adrienne. There's 6 figures worth of untested rape kits in our country, backlogged, tossed to the side, unfunded. Who funds these things? Politicians who put money and allocate money in different places to go to things like protecting our society. So when they don't, is it political then too?
Yeah, you have to wonder who is actually focusing on the politics as opposed to the victim. Because when people come forward and say that they're sexually assaulted, that is an act of absolute and total courage, because you know that the system is structured such that you cannot win, that you have investigators who do not investigate. You have individuals who take rape kits that all of a sudden get thrown out. The system has always been stacked against individuals who are victims of sexual violence. And as a result of that, it has deterred individuals from coming forward, and it has enabled people who are sexual predators like Donald Trump to persist in their predation. And for that attorney to be there in the interview with Dana Bash, weaponizing the deficiencies in our system and saying because these women are finally coming forward and having the courage to speak out about what had happened to them, that they're making a political attack on the president as opposed to speaking their truth, which was silenced for years because of the systemic failures that are in place to continue to silence these victims. It's like, get out of here. That's utterly disgusting. But I'm sure that is a refrain we will continue to hear from so many people out there pushing and vying for Donald Trump.
It's all we've heard so far. And if you think they don't know the process and how it works and how, again, Donald Trump playing the role like any of these guys that are accused of things like this and go, she's not my type. That's part of this process too. So it's also one of the reasons why he lost this case, as he didn't take it seriously, didn't show up and just said, well, I'm just gonna say I don't know her and she's not my type. Sure thing. That's how these things work out. But I guess the privilege still flies around. Let's go ahead and jump to this next story, you guys. Since we've got talk of legal liability and criminal charges coming down, there's another one.
You guys, look, this is the beginning of the ability for me to address and defend myself. We have an indictment. We have the information that the government wants to come after me on, and I'm going to comply. I've been complying throughout this entire process. I have no desire not to comply at this point. They've been gracious in there. Now I'm gonna have to go and fight to defend myself. The reality is it's a witch hunt, because it makes no sense that in 4 months, 5 months, I'm indicted. You have Joe Biden's entire family receiving deposits from nine family members receiving money from foreign destinations into their bank accounts. It's been years of exposing. A lot of you here have reported on them, and yet no investigation is launched into them. I'm gonna fight. I'm getting back to that. I'm gonna fight my battle. I'm gonna deliver. I'm gonna fight the witch hunt. I'm gonna take care of clearing my name, and I look forward to doing that.
George Santos is pulling a really bad impression of Donald Trump. It's a witch hunt, and I'm gonna fight back. You know, this is one of those few politicians where you'll see them outright say something against what it is they're being charged with, and you kind of get some boos even from the crowd there. So in case you guys didn't realize it, now he's facing 13 different charges, which we'll get into more details of, but there's a little bit more.
Yeah, we're just hearing, John, that George Santos is in custody and this indictment has been unsealed. I want to give you some quick details as we're going through the paperwork. He is charged on a 13-count indictment, according to those court documents. The charges include 7 counts of wire fraud, 3 counts of money laundering, 1 count of theft of public funds, and 2 counts of making materially false statements to the House of Representatives. Again, we're just getting this indictment. It has just been unsealed. We're hearing that Santos is inside the federal courthouse here behind me, and he has been arrested on these charges. And of course, we're learning that he will see a judge later today, very likely on these charges. But
this is getting pretty serious. Here's a few more of the details that they were pointing out there. Santos is only 34 years old, by the way. And they released him on a $500,000 bond after this whole arraignment. So he's turned himself to these authorities in Long Island. He's facing these fraud, money laundering, and theft of public funds. 20 years is what he could be seeing. Really fast, the theft of these public funds. Prosecutors said that Santos induced supporters to donate to a company under the false pretense, among many other things he tricked people into, that the money would be used to support his campaign. Instead, he used the money for personal expenses, designer clothes, and his credit card and car payments. Very nice, George. But still, he went through this entire process. They've caught up with him, and he's gonna defend himself against this witch hunt. There's absolutely no evidence, like there always is no evidence right before all the evidence is right in front of everyone's faces. He's trying to figure out why, after only 4 months, he's now been arrested and charged. I'm trying to figure out why it didn't happen after 1 month. because everyone already knew. A little bit more on this. Actually, before we go to more of that, Adrienne, I feel like you have a couple thoughts.
Well, I just really love the level of indignance that he showed in having to answer those questions or having to stand up there and speak about why he is there in front of the courthouse. It's really astonishing. I want his level of confidence to be able to really just go with these lies and be so bold about it. Like he says these things with his chest, and then for this to come down in terms of this 13-count indictment, for him to act completely shocked and act like I cannot believe this is happening. It's like, really? It's just like Oscar Academy Award winning performance.
Well, the reason he can't believe it is because usually these politicians circle the wagons for each other and make sure that they don't get caught up, which one Kevin McCarthy tried to do a few months ago. Let's watch.
Now, Speaker Kevin McCarthy, who's been pretty quiet so far, finally commented about this today, telling Fox that Santos will continue to serve, at least for now.
The voters are the power. The voters made the decision, and he has a right to serve. If there is something that rises to the occasion that he did something wrong, then we'll deal with that at that time.
You guys remember that? That was back when his biography was being pulled apart and people realized how much he was lying about who he is, down to his name, bro. So Kevin McCarthy, I suppose he's a man of his word. If something comes down, if there's some kind of charges, we'll talk about it then. That day is today, Kevin. What do you have to say?
No. Yes.
Are you going to continue to stand by George Santos now that he's been indicted on federal charges?
I'm not going to avoid your question, but as you know, I've been at the White House. I haven't seen the indictment, but as you know, with George Santos, I did not put him on any committees. For those like Senator Menendez, who was indicted and we went to trial, he was still able to vote, and others. I believe he's the chairman of a committee today. In America, we'll just follow the same pattern we always have, right? If a person is indicted, they're not on committees, they have the right to vote, but they have to go to trial. If, just like we had a member of Fortenberry, he had the same ability, I removed him from committees, but he was found guilty, and I told him he needed to resign. That is my policies and principles on this, and I follow the same.
What he's saying is, I'm not going to do anything about it because, again, this is a member of my party. I didn't do anything. Hey, guys, if you guys are trying to come for me on this is my political career I'm trying to protect here. Forget that guy. Do what you're going to do, but don't let this anyway bleed towards me. So one circle of the wagons is kind of not really fully there. He's still trying to just protect his own ass. How about Steve Scalise? Because he also put himself in front of a podium and a microphone, which in these cases, I always say, ask the entire party how they feel about these folks when these things break. Well, someone's asking, but he wanted to talk about, ironically, a bill that would stop some fraud. Let's listen to what he had to say.
And then also, given all those indictments of Mr. Santos, a question for you and Chairwoman Stefanik is, should he resign?
So first of all, in regard to George Santos, he was already removed from all of his committees. There is a legal process. The charges just came out. We just saw some of them this morning. And so in America, there's a presumption of innocence, but they're serious charges. He's going to have to go through the legal process. But we're going to continue to work to root out fraud. And there's lots of it. And we're talking about tens, if not hundreds of billions of dollars in fraud in many.
The question was whether or not you feel like you putting forward this, by the way, the bill is HR 1163, Protecting Taxpayers and Victims of Unemployment Fraud Act. That's the thing that he went up there to talk about, Steve Scalise. And he was asked, because of your fraudulent members of Congress on your side of the party, do you think that kind of pokes holes in your moral approach that you think you have with this? And apparently has nothing to do with him, except this one small detail, Adrienne. I love this. One of the co-sponsors of this bill is one guy. Let me see if I can pronounce his name right. George Santos.
I think it's actually DeVolder. Yes, that sounds right. No, it's hysterical how he was co-sponsoring this bill, and on the same day that he is released on a $500,000 bond for violating the bill. That would be it, or the terms of whatever the bill would be.
Maybe his moral standing, how he's fighting these witch hunt charges against him, only the fact that he's co-sponsoring a bill that might stop something he probably would have wanted to take advantage of. That's what we've learned. So you guys can keep trusting this party from top to bottom. You can just brush aside George Santos and say, well, that's not really the representation of the party. When someone asks, someone who represents the party, I think pretty prominently, and Steve Scalise, and he says, nothing, it's just us. I think maybe he's part of it too. At least if nothing else, trying to cover it up. Because again, it's about their own asses. Let's take this break, you guys. Let's hear what you guys have to say about these first couple of stories. But also, when we get back, Tucker Carlson is back in the news. He's trying to regain some footing. And I think he's probably trying to get a hand from one Elon Musk. You guys may have heard about this. We're going to talk about that and a lot more when we get back.
All right, well, the Young Turks special election day coverage dropping.
An amazing power panel.
Look at this panel. You want to talk about power?
Like a smart Destiny's Child.
We're all too strong.
We spun a revolution. Yes, another one. Aren't you excited? Wow. And then Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez, everybody. Yay!
You know, this is where it started in a lot of ways.
Why is he lying? Because these are acts that you can commit with impunity.
Most of us are usually in boxer shorts underneath.
I went with the pants today. This is the first ever power panel with Donald Trump as president.
We have elected the top Twitter troll in the country.
We have to stop pretending that race is not an issue in this country.
Now keep in mind, racism had gone away until Barack Obama brought it back.
That's right.
They want to protect life so much that they want to ensure that insurance companies don't cover your maternity care. You don't see a lot of news coverage in the mainstream media of the peaceful Black Lives Matter protests that happened throughout the country.
Black Americans are hurting. Minorities in this country are hurting.
We always talk about starting from the bottom up, but the problem is the bottom up is always the least amount of power. No one cares about them, and until someone actually cares about them, then we'll do something about it.
Please, for God's sake, America, understand, acknowledge, and work towards getting to a new reality where Black lives actually matter.
Welcome back on the watch, you guys. What's up? Let's find out, you guys. Over on Twitch, love y'all on Twitch. Desantis Silva says it's a gorgeous day today. I agree, both with the weather and with the hosts. Oh, love Jayar and Adrienne. Love you right back. I mean, I assume Adrienne loves you too, but I can't speak for her. Blazing Monkey also on Twitch says, how did she get through law school? How? I think we're talking about Alina Abba, or Trump's attorney off the top. I mean, depends on what law school it was, I suppose, but also how does she keep working is the second question. She works for Donald Trump. Over on YouTube, you guys, Twisty Locks says, Adrienne Lawrence, yep. No better way to spend my news day. Man, how do I get love like this? This is crazy.
I love it.
I don't need you guys, I'm just messing. Dirk Cardinal says, it's surprising that they would arrest George Santos, given that he's a 3-time World Series MVP. I agree, and reminded me, I wanted to play that Mets video of him from like the beginning of the baseball season. Did you ever see that, Adrienne? Look it up. George Santos, Mets, opening day. It's all you gotta write in. It's glorious. It's one of my favorite clips of all time. I'm gonna play it every time anyone mentions the word baseball. One last thing, you guys. Michael Morgan over on YouTube says, I heard George Desantis, Jefferson, the actor, not the president. Seems appropriate. Absolutely. We'll see how far this witch hunt that he's fighting will take him to fight. I guess another witch hunt that's going on is one Tucker Carlson's fighting against a Fox News, but he's found a new home, I think. Let's watch.
The best you can hope for in the news business at this point is the freedom to tell the fullest truth that you can. But there are always limits. And you know that if you bump up against those limits often enough, you will be fired for it. That's not a guess, it's guaranteed. Amazingly, as of tonight, there aren't many platforms left that allow free speech. The last big one remaining in the world, the only one, is Twitter, where we are now. Starting soon, we'll be bringing a new version of the show we've been doing for the last 6.5 years to Twitter. We'll be bringing some other things too, which we'll tell you about. But for now, we're just grateful to be here. Free speech is the main right that you have. Without it, you have no others. See you soon.
Inspirational words from Tucker Carlson, who apparently freedom is gone nowhere. Freedom is nowhere in the country because he got fired for being limited, or maybe it was for saying a bunch of stuff behind folks' backs and not being real and lying to the audience and costing your former employer $787 million. He was just part of that whole operation. So definitely no kind of sympathy for his former employer. But he's now on Twitter. He's on Twitter now, I think, because this is what Elon Musk, again, that guy who owns Twitter, tweeted after Tucker said that. He says, on this platform, unlike the one-way street of broadcast, people are able to interact, critique, and refute whatever is said. And of course, anything misleading will get community notes, promoting himself a little bit more. I also want to be clear that we have not signed a deal of any kind whatsoever with Tucker. So what is Tucker talking about? How come he didn't elaborate further about how much of a liar Tucker is right off the top? Because it will be on Twitter, it'll be happening right away. Maybe he's not lying. Maybe Elon Musk is a part of this, but he just doesn't want to admit it just yet. But still, Tucker's has made this plan happen, and he gave hints about this a couple weeks ago, though. I mean, you know, he's been fired for a minute when he was on the Full Send podcast, and he was talking about mainstream media and all those that he used to work for, because he worked for all of them, by the way. But this is what he was saying, and he hinted at this.
I've spent my whole life in the media. My dad was in the media. Like, that is a big part of the revelation that's changed my life, is the media are part of the control apparatus. Like, there's no. Yeah, I know, because you're younger and smarter and you're like, yeah. But what if you're me and you spent your whole life in that world, and to look around and all of a sudden you're like, oh, wow. Not only are they part of the problem, but I spent most of my life being part of the problem, defending the Iraq war. Like, I actually did that. Can you imagine if you did that? It's their only purpose.
Right.
They're not here to inform you. Really? Even on the big things that really matter, like the economy and war and COVID and like things that really matter that will affect you. No, their job is not to inform you. They are working for the small group of people who actually run the world. They're their servants. They're their Praetorian Guard. And we should treat them with maximum contempt because they have earned it.
Adrienne, Tucker was lamenting the fact that he once defended the Iraq war way back in the day. Not talking about how he once defended a one Donald Trump who he exclusively said he hated and feels held hostage by. And can we stop talking about this guy just a couple of years ago?
You know, it's so interesting to me how Tucker Carlson is trying to be the everyman. And what I really actually think he's doing with this Twitter show is he's trying to advance negotiations for the end of his Fox News contract. The fact is, I believe the New York Times said he saw Lachlan Murdoch, the executive chairman at Fox, on Monday, and is trying to negotiate his exit package. Things didn't go well. And so that's why he posted that video on Tuesday saying that I'm going to go have another show, which is kind of, you know, the exact right place to go, because on Twitter, he'll be able to hate monger, say whatever he wants, you know, defame, embellish, lie, do it all, and do it with impunity, because we know Elon Musk is just going to prop him up and allow him to do it. So I just think everything surrounding this is messy, and it's about to get messier.
Tucker was packing up his crates or his desk, and he said, I'm not going to take this anymore. Fox News, you used to lie uncontrollably, and now you fired me to lie without me. I'm going somewhere else where I have the freedom to do such things. By the way, we all know about the text messages and then the emails and the hate that he was talking about, and actually talking behind the backs of many of his guests that assisted him in telling those lies about the 2020 election in support of Donald Trump, who apparently he didn't want to support in doing it. Who knows what Tucker Carlson really believes? But we do know what he's saying when he didn't want people to know about it. Now, aspects of this potential break with Fox News have something to do also with who's gonna break this contract. And again, I didn't know that part, Adrienne, about him going and those negotiations falling apart. So he's going to the, I guess, the jury of the American people, and he thinks he has enough support there. Maybe this Tucker Twitter show will work, but I don't know. Maybe it's something like a platform like Twitter. I just don't believe it at this point. Maybe it'll be transformed enough and it'll become Twitter Tucker. Maybe that's part of the negotiation contracts. We'll see. I'm actually we'll see as this goes, and the hatred that he's looking to spew gets platformed somewhere else. But this is gonna get really messy, and I'm actually looking forward to that part. Now they got more legal fights to have. Let's jump to this next story, you guys, real quick.
We begin in Florida, where the Tampa Bay Times reports the state house has passed a bill that bans Chinese citizens from owning land in the state. There are exceptions if they hold dual U.S. citizenship or are permanent residents. The legislation has sparked protests, prompting lawmakers to imply those against it are conspiring with the Chinese Communist Party.
Sweet Jesus, what's going on in Florida?
Well, there's more news out of Florida. Ron DeSantis still trying to set up his potential presidential run, which keeps hitting hurdles, oddly, that Donald Trump is setting up for him. But still, maybe this will help him. He's looking to make sure that he keeps one particular group of migrants from owning anything in Florida, or at least land. Not even necessarily folks that are gonna be citizens, but anyone else like that. It's odd that he's trying to break down specifically certain folks who can, but we can see why, considering it's Chinese folks. So at his press conference, he also framed this as some sort of fight against the communists.
They have had a concerted effort to acquire farmland throughout the United States. In fact, they were trying to acquire land in Florida in Levy County, and that ended up not working out, thankfully, because there was some opposition. But nevertheless, you see what they're doing. And I look at things like farmland. It's important for community, it's important for business and jobs and the economy, but our food security is also national security. And so we don't want the CCP in charge of any of the food production. So when you see that, when you see what they're doing in the Western Hemisphere to expand their influence, we really need to have a unified effort in this country to deter the CCP's ambitions and their influence.
He mentions the CCP. Let's look into some of the folks that he's looking to limit from having this ability. One of these bills restricts Chinese nationals from buying land in Florida unless they are also American citizens or permanent residents. Chinese citizens with non-tourist visas would be limited to buying fewer than 2 acres of land that's at least 5 miles away from any military institutions. Again, with the assumption that if you're a Chinese citizen, especially with a non-tourist visa, that you're out to do harm. It's weird how we keep pigeonholing certain folks. Just look at where they're from. Look at what their face looks like. Check out their background. It means they're up to one thing only. But if you say that obvious white folks with Nazi insignias and also presence on Facebook and anywhere else that talk about how much they want to murder anyone that's not them, it's, oh man, I don't know why you guys are making these assumptions about this person. They told us that. But these assumptions are made just broadly about a bunch of folks. So by the way, so with that type of situation in place, a Chinese citizen living in the USA on a visa, a recent college grad or something like that, would not be allowed to buy a home in this situation 5 miles or 2 acres worth near any kind of military base. So it restricts that type of access as well. But what it does look like, Adrienne, I don't know if you remember this, was I didn't. From 150 years ago, this one act, the Chinese Exclusion Act, I guess we don't name them as blatant as we used to. From 1882, the Chinese Exclusion Act provided an absolute 10-year ban on Chinese laborers immigrating to the US. And for the first time, the federal law prescribed this entry of an ethnic working group on the premise that it endangered the good order of certain localities. Now, if you think, Adrienne, that they're not gonna expand this to whoever else they're afraid of, and maybe they can't have this right and that right, the expansion is slow. This type of assumptions made about folks is slow and under the guise of they're coming for us, so we have to go after them first. It's standard Republican 101.
Absolutely. And I really question the constitutionality of it. You know, the last time I checked, in modern day society in the United States, having land restrictions based on someone's race and also you could say their origin too is kind of discriminatory and would violate a number of laws. I really don't know what Desantis is doing. But then again, Desantis has had no problem violating the laws in any way to advance his neo-Nazi adjacent agenda. You know, we saw him do that with the Don't Say Gay bill and Stop Woke Act and all these other legislation that he has come out of his GOP supermajority legislature there. And again, the courts will set them aside, will throw them down. And Desantis knows that, but he will continue to have them churned out because what he wants to do is induce fear. He wants people to feel little. He wants them to play small. He wants them not to come to Florida because he wants to create a region in which white people and white power is on top. And the thing is that is not economically viable. And so individuals in the state of Florida are going to suffer big time financially, all because DeSantis really, really wants to be the next Klans member head Grand Dragon.
And that's apparently the run that he thinks is the angle and entry point he's got into the presidential race. One more small point, because since we're afraid of folks and what they might do in buying land on American soil, how about these guys? Let's jump to this graphic number 5 here. The Saudi government, owns the largest oil refinery in the United States. Do the folks down in Florida realize this? Or do they also realize that this other guy, his name is Donald Trump, who resides in Florida, also was open about Saudis buying things from him in the hundreds of millions of dollars worth? Because he's like, well, they pay. Why would I have anything against those folks? Specifically, this America First agenda when you're selling land, oil refineries. But Chinese folks that are on visas can't buy anything within a few miles of a military base. But this is fine. If you think clearly for 5 seconds about it, all these supporters of both of these guys, maybe you'll think, this doesn't look that right. What is it that they really want to do? How am I being used in their stupid game of chess to continue to disenfranchise certain folks and go on a bigotry line of a campaign and I'm in support of? You're gonna suffer, as you said, Adrienne. They will suffer from this. Here's more from Ron DeSantis. Let's jump to the next thing he's trying to do with him trying to jump into this race on a hate line. Let's go.
There's like less than 20 people working today. Usually there's about 100. And it's really interesting. I'm wondering how they're gonna get this project done without undocumented workers.
Y andamos todos agüitados porque no llegó ni una persona a trabajar, ni alma se mira.
No hay trabajadores. Venimos a checar a Miami, a ver si es cierto y es verdad, mira. No hay trabajadores, todo vacío.
Ahora cuénteme, miren, los que quedan están sentados. Porque mira cómo está el trabajo ahí, miren. Y los que quedan están sentados. Esos son los que tienen papeles, los que quedan. Nunca había visto yo a una gente sentada ahí.
Oh, I think Ron DeSantis might have stepped in at this time. He's got a new anti-immigration bill that's left all these job sites, a few of those examples there, quite empty. Just a bunch of cranes and work equipment without anyone to work it. I think they're illustrating exactly one of the things that's going on in the United States of America. So he's got these laws. He wants to make sure everyone knows he hates anyone that's not native to the United States, born here, but actually a significant number of folks in that category he hates as well. But let's focus on specifically migrants in this case. So he's mad about this and he's trying to pass this to make himself look like more of a bigot so he can run. But look at what's now been exposed. Here's more details of this bill that's got job sites empty. Not working?
The legislation would impose harsher penalties for transporting undocumented immigrants into Florida, invalidate driver's licenses given to people who can't prove their legal status, prohibit undocumented migrants from becoming certified lawyers, require employers with more than 25 employees to use E-Verify, allocate $12 million in the next fiscal year to send migrants out of Florida, and require hospitals that accept Medicaid to ask admitted patients for their immigration status and report that data to the state.
How would your life change if this immigration-related bill takes effect here?
There is a higher risk. I looked at the things that I needed to change in my life, taking more public transportation, being more careful about the places that I go to, and I'm already implementing those things.
Julio says that one way the bill would impact him is that he would have to be more careful about seeking medical care, avoiding hospitals that will be required to report his status to the state.
This is what happens when politicians continue to completely buy their own BS that they've pushed all these constituents. Look, so we need this anti-immigration bill to go across to make sure that I look like the bigot that I am. And then you don't realize that this country thrives off of damn near slave labor. It's the way it always kind of has been. And when you illustrate it and you're a part of that problem in your state, I think we might be seeing some illustrations of how this may go wrong, Adrienne.
Absolutely. It's completely and totally ignorant of Desantis to essentially isolate himself from a nice sizable population there in Florida who are the backbone of Florida. The economy there, it relies considerably on migrant workers. A lot of these individuals are being paid very low wages and they're being exploited because that is the American way. And it is absolutely disgusting, but the way to handle it is not to expel them, not for the work that they do, number one, and their abilities to take care of themselves. They should continue to be employed, but also for the sake of your nation. Again, the economy is sustained in large part because of these migrant workers. If you take them out of the equation, if you force them to flee and to the point where they do not feel safe anymore, you are just going to set yourself up to collapse the exact state that you're supposed to be representing. It's just wild to me.
Yeah, and I love the illustration that maybe it will show to not a lot of people that, the basis or the strength, you mentioned the strength of the economy is based off the work of these folks. And we always base the strength of our economy off of rich people's bank accounts. So if they start getting, affected by this because maybe they didn't realize the degree at which this capitalistic system has to force people to work for little to nothing in order for all the money to go up as high as possible, then when we see it, it's almost like a built-in strike or a created strike on their own. You guys can't do it anymore. We're gonna get some American workers here. And American workers are like, will we?
There you go.
We keep seeing it happen. Maybe you guys should realize, but by the time it blows up in his face, he'll say it's some Democrat's fault and all of his idiot supporters will follow along and listen to him. Okay, let's go to this next story, you guys. There's lots of mental health issues going on across the country. People, I think, on a higher rate, I saw this just yesterday, are concerned about money issues and are in a different state of a bad place here. When police show up, though, to help someone that was in one of those bad mental health states, shots get fired. Let's watch this. This is a bit troubling.
The York County Sheriff's Office facing a lawsuit. Attorneys for Trevor Mullinex say deputies were negligent and malicious in how they handled an interaction with him in 2021.
Almost 50 shots, including to the back of somebody's head. That person's not a threat.
They say Mullinex was considering suicide when law enforcement was called to help. Attorneys say his mother, Tammy Beeson, was standing by the car consoling him when officers opened fire, shooting Mullinex 9 times. He survived.
How do you address a distressed man with a gun, apparently with more guns, and shoot at him all through his truck? By the way, you saw a woman standing at the edge of that truck there who had to run for her life. At the same time, that was the suicidal man's mother. There's more to the story. Let's watch more.
All we wanted was to get some help for my son. Never in my life have I ever imagined that I would be put in danger by someone on the law enforcement.
In dispatch audio and body camera footage shared by Mullinex's attorneys, you can hear investigators ask about warrants he had before the shots rang out.
York PD was looking for Trevor Mullinex last night.
They're saying it's burglary first and malicious injury.
Video shows when they arrived at the scene, officers tell someone at the home
he's got to go to jail.
But attorneys say those charges were later dropped.
They took he's got warrants and overlooked the fact that this initially was a welfare check from his cousin that said, we're just trying to get some help from our buddy.
In a statement to WCNC Charlotte, the sheriff's office stood by their actions, saying in part, quote, Mr. Mullinex chose to put these men in danger by pulling a shotgun. These deputies responded appropriately to the threat as they were trained to do. Had Mr. Mullinex made different choices that day, deputies would not have been required to use force.
if you'd have made different choices that day, they wouldn't have been required to just shoot at him on a welfare check. Again, for folks who say, next time need the cops, don't call them, or it's not you're in trouble, don't call them. I think this is one good reason why. And also, it's the sad part, Adrienne, as I heard his mother talk about it, because she's still in distress over this whole thing. And luckily he survived, was I never would have thought, that stuck to me. I never would have thought I'd be in the situation where the police are doing this to me. More and more people, I guess, when they don't have anyone else to shoot at in a particular situation, they're like, well, guy's got a gun, we need to kill someone today. It works out.
Yeah, and it also speaks volumes to the mentality of a lot of people out there who see the thought of police brutality as being a Black people problem, a person of color, a brown people problem. They don't think of it being a problem until it shows up at their door. The fact is that if this is the mentality that police take a shoot first, ask questions later kind of approach, why do you think that you're going to be exempt in some way? It's like, get out of here. This has become very much an aspect of police culture. And I will say there are some amazing officers out there who do incredible jobs, especially in terms of de-escalating mental health situations. But my God, they are few and far between. And it's just not safe for us out here to reach out to police the vast majority of the time when we need help, particularly in instances where there's a mental health crisis.
And somehow they can see that, or if someone says we need to reallocate funds because these are situations that get produced from this, they're like, how dare you are against law enforcement? Law enforcement, they pointed out, this is what they're trained to do, to be punitive and to be trigger happy and to just think, yo, somebody's there, time to start assaulting, time to start shooting. Yep. I guess if it happens to you, then maybe you'll go, I never thought that happened to me. You're exposing something about your thought process. It's okay as long as it doesn't happen to you. Next story here, you guys. There's a children's book out there, and I'm not sure which one of you guys maybe own it. Let me know how it is, but this is the background to it.
If you have the book called Are You With Me in your library right now, it's a book on grief, like how children can process grief. You might want to take a second look at it, or maybe not look at it at all. The reason I say that is because the woman who wrote it ostensibly wrote it because she was dealing with grief with her kids. Their dad was killed, died in his sleep. And so she wrote the book and then went on TV to promote it. And all of a sudden, as it turns out, she's actually been arrested and charged with his murder. That is Corey Richens, Utah Mama 3. Here's some of the stuff that the police found. Apparently, Corey sent a text to somebody named CL asking for fentanyl. Quote, some of the Michael Jackson stuff, to be specific.
Oh, you know, fentanyl's running crazy in our communities. Apparently, someone who was looking to murder her husband was one of the main purchasers here. Her name, as you guys heard, there was Corey Richens, but she wrote this children's book. Now, I don't know, maybe the book is still good enough and it has some level of teachable moments in it, but the background to it just might be an issue. She went on a book tour and everything, promoting the book, talking about reasons why that she wrote it. Keep that in mind as you also remember that she's been charged with murdering her husband. Watch.
So my husband passed away unexpectedly last year.
So you actually wrote this book with your children?
I did. It's just comforting to them to know that, you know, they're not living this life alone. Like Dad is still here. It's just in a different way. I just wanted some story to read to my kids at night. And I just could not find anything. I couldn't find anything that really, you know, suited them or helped them find comfort and peace. And so, you know, I was like, let's just write one.
She's in search of comfort and peace for her children, and this is the devastating details of the comfort and peace that her children were seeking, but it was under these circumstances. She told investigators, by the way, according to this document, that she slept in one of her children's bedrooms because the child had a night terror. She allegedly woke up around 3 o'clock in the morning and found that her husband was in their bedroom, cold to the touch, is the way she described it. And the thing is, though, is she had tried to poison him a couple of times before, and he suspected the whole thing. Authorities accused Corey Richens of having obtained these fentanyl pills from an acquaintance identified as CL, as you heard. The acquaintance got 15 to 30 fentanyl pills and delivered them to Richens, who paid $900 for those drugs. And 3 days later, on the 14th of February, sadly Valentine's Day, Eric Richens became ill after they had a Valentine's Day dinner at home. Again, that's according to that document. So when that didn't work, she went in again. Eric believed that he had been poisoned. Eric told a friend that he thought his wife was trying to poison him, is what investigators wrote. Then about 2 weeks later, the defendant contacted CL yet again and said that her investor wanted something stronger and asked for again. That's when she asked for the Michael Jackson stuff. And then the defendant asked specifically for fentanyl. And again, she paid $900 for it again. And then days later, it finally worked out, I guess, allegedly in her favor. Her husband then died, and then books had to be written. Mourning had to go through for her children. And again, Adrienne, this is one of those things we talk about, gun violence and how families are torn apart and people aren't understanding what could potentially have happened to their family members if they're young enough. Think about the processing these children, these families have to go through after something like this.
Absolutely. And I love the fact that she had put out the book there to help with the processing. Yeah. But for it to turn out that she is at least accused of being the culprit for creating the situation that she said gave rise to the book, that's some twisted stuff. Yeah. Let me tell you, yeah, for real. And we have, unfortunately, children dying every day due to guns, but also losing their parents and whatnot due to society, the one we've created that's completely unsafe. And so the reality is that children do need to have guidance to learn how to adjust and to live in this new world that we have created. And as far as I'm concerned, this woman is largely kind of just a reflection, a product of that. Because again, what she did, whole different level of wild, whole different level.
As you mentioned that, I was thinking, I said, now it turned into a financial decision or a financial goal. Mm-hmm. Like this whole thing happened, and let's write a book. Let's go on a book tour even. The boldness is off the charts for how much she's doing with. She was doing around a murder. Okay, let's go to this last story, you guys. This one speaks to my heart. It's a happy story. It's a good news story. And I feel like I relate to this woman. Let's go. Good news out of Australia is those rescue workers there discovered a woman who was lost in the wilderness, luckily still with her car after 5 days. This woman has only been identified as Lillian. She's 48 years old, and as you saw, the authorities there finally reached her in this wooded area and helped her out of there. This is the tweet from the Victoria Police down there who pointed out, they said, see the moment that Air Wing located a woman who was missing for 5 days in dense bushland. Yesterday afternoon, Air Wing were conducting a sweep of the hilly terrain, and they spotted Lillian's car at the end of a dirt road in the Mita bushland. So I guess that's some serious stuff. She couldn't find her way out. But think about it, 5 days worth to survive in the wilderness, something I wouldn't want to have to deal with, that's for sure. But this is how it happened. She was driving towards the Dartmouth Dam for a day trip from the nearby town of Bright when she hit a dead-end road and realized she made a wrong turn. When she tried to turn her car around, the vehicle became stuck in the mud, and that was it. And without cell phone service, she was unable to call for help. Then health issues made it difficult for her to walk or try and get away any other kind of way, which may have helped her survive. But she was able to use her car heater to hang out in it for those few days. Those temperatures dropped to 35 degrees. Luckily, I guess there's enough gas in her car to keep it going for that. But what else? Yeah, she stayed warm, but wouldn't you be hungry and thirsty after 5 days? Lillian was not. Planning for a 2-hour drive, Lillian had only a few snacks, some candy and a bottle of wine. That's all she got, which she intended as a gift for her mother. Lillian does not drink, keep that in mind, but she eventually consumed that whole bottle of wine as her only liquid. And she also ate those, I think it was lollipops as the candy that she had. She was treated for dehydration in a nearby hospital. But other than that, she appears to be pretty healthy. And as you give us your thoughts here, Adrienne, the desperation on her face as she reached up and look at this last image here says it all. But she still had that blue tote in her hand. I think the wine bottle was in there.
You know what? I don't think that was desperation. I really think that was a reflection of the joy of whatever substance she had consumed. Because my God, the moment I read the storyline about a woman surviving on lollipops and wine, I'm just thinking, this is our queen. Like, this is her. She's out here doing it. And oh my God, this story is just so incredibly wild. But I really think it does hammer home the point that you always should carry a bottle of wine on you. Because I've been advocating for this my entire life. And so now I have this example of exactly why.
I grew up in the Midwest and also St. Louis and Detroit. And there was always these survival tactic things. Say you get stuck on the side of the road, your car breaks down, it's the dead of winter. Keep a blanket in the back, keep this and that, make sure your gas is at this. There's all these things you're supposed to do. Apparently, it's keep wine. But the question now is red or white? What's it, Chardonnay versus, I don't drink wine, sorry.
And you always gotta have the twist off top. Like you have to, if you're gonna do this, you need to do it right. Because nobody wants to be out there in the forest and you can't open the bottle.
And lollipops are great because it's slow consuming. You don't just go right away and it's not like a bag of Skittles. That'll be done in a minute. So she was definitely hyped up, a little drunk, a little bit excited, a little bit on a sugar high. Still very happy that she found it, and then actually there's a good story behind it. Thanks, Adrienne, for joining me on the show. You know how to speak to me with the wine. I said maybe beers and candies for me.
That would be cool. I respect that.
Thank you. Appreciate you guys joining me as well on a Wednesday. Up next, hang out though, hang out. The Young Turks are coming up next. It's Anna Kasparian solo first hour, joined by John Iderola for the second. Should be fun times. We'll see you guys tomorrow.